Billionaire Jonathan stood by the street lamp, pasting posters of his missing daughter, each one a desperate plea, trembling with hope and fear. Suddenly, a black boy approached him slowly, his eyes wide with astonishment and something unspoken lurking beneath. The boy stared at the girl's photo on the poster as if he had uncovered a long-buried secret, and in that moment, time itself seemed to freeze. Then, in a low, trembling voice, he whispered, "Sir, that girl, she lives in my house." The words hit Jonathan like a punch to the chest. His hands trembled as he clutched the poster, feeling a strange mixture of hope and terror. Could it really be possible? Could Emily, his daughter who had vanished months ago without a trace, really be so close? His mind raced, piecing together possibilities, dangers, and questions he didn't yet have answers for. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Jonathan looked at the boy, studying his hesitant expression. The boy's eyes darted nervously toward the dark alley behind them, and Jonathan sensed fear, pure and raw, lurking there. "Tell me," Jonathan said firmly, trying to keep his voice calm. "Where exactly does she live?" The boy hesitated, biting his lip, his hands twisting nervously. "On the outskirts, near the old mill," he finally whispered. I shouldn't be telling you this. They'll get angry if they find out." Jonathan nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of the boy's words. The old mill was in a forgotten part of the city, abandoned, silent, and eerie. It was the perfect hiding place for someone who didn't want to be found. But why would his daughter be there? And more importantly, was she safe? He felt his chest tighten at the thought of her being in danger. But he pushed aside fear, replacing it with resolve. He would find her, no matter what. "Come with me," Jonathan said, offering the boy a reassuring smile. The boy hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They walked toward Jonathan's sleek black car parked nearby. As they drove through the quiet, dimly lit streets, Jonathan's mind wandered back to the last time he had seen Emily. She had been laughing in the garden, sunlight catching her golden hair as she twirled around. That memory had been a lifeline for him ever since she disappeared, but now, hope surged inside him like a roaring fire. He was closer than ever. The car pulled up near the outskirts, where the air was colder and the city's lights seemed to fade into shadows. Jonathan stepped out and followed the boy toward a small house hidden behind tall, overgrown hedges. The building looked abandoned at first glance. Chipped paint, broken windows, and a rusty gate that creaked with the wind. But Jonathan sensed life inside, a presence that matched the boy's urgent whispers. As they approached, Jonathan noticed faint movement in the window, a flicker of light and a shadow that seemed to dart away the moment he looked. His heart pounded. Could it really be her? Emily, standing there, unaware that her father had finally tracked her down? The boy's voice quivered as he whispered, I don't know what will happen if they see you, but she's there." Jonathan crouched beside him, taking a steadying breath. He had faced hostile boardrooms, ruthless competitors, even threats on his life. But nothing had prepared him for this raw fear, the uncertainty of confronting whoever had been hiding his daughter. Yet, beneath that fear was determination, burning brighter than ever. He would not leave without her. Not now. Not ever. The boy led him around the back of the house, pointing to a small side door. From inside came a faint hum, a soft melody, one Jonathan immediately recognized. Emily used to sing that song while sketching in her room, lost in her drawings. The sound made his throat tighten. That had to be her. Jonathan whispered, "Stay here and watch. I'll bring her out safely." The boy nodded, eyes wide with worry and hope. Jonathan crept closer to the door, hand on the knob. He froze for a moment as a shadow moved across the floor inside, followed by a harsh voice demanding, "Who's there?" Emily's silhouette appeared, clutching a small sketchbook to her chest. Her eyes widened, and Jonathan's heart leapt. Recognition flickered in her gaze, but fear kept her rooted in place. "Dad?" she whispered. Jonathan stepped closer, his voice soft but urgent. "Yes, Emily, it's me. I'm here to take you home." From the shadows, a tall figure stepped forward, a man whose presence radiated menace. Jonathan's heart raced, but he stood firm. "Step aside. She's coming with me," he commanded. The man laughed, a cold, unsettling sound, but Jonathan didn't flinch. He had waited months for this moment. faced countless challenges, and nothing would stop him from rescuing his daughter. Every second counted. Every decision could mean the difference between safety and disaster. Jonathan's pulse pounded as he prepared to face the danger head-on, determined to protect Emily at all costs. Jonathan's eyes locked onto the man, measuring every movement, every twitch. The figure was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried a cold, calculating gaze that made Jonathan's blood run cold. But fear had no place here. He stepped forward, planting himself between Emily and the stranger. "I don't want trouble," Jonathan said, his voice steady, but every word carried authority. "I'm only here for my daughter. Step aside." The man chuckled, a low, menacing sound that echoed through the empty house. "You think it's that simple?" he sneered. "She doesn't belong to you anymore. You have no idea who she is now, or what she's involved in." Jonathan's heart skipped a beat, but he refused to let it control him. "I don't care," he said, his voice firmer. "She's my daughter. That's all that matters." Emily clutched her sketchbook tighter, her small hands trembling. She looked at Jonathan, confusion and relief mixed in her eyes. "Dad, what's happening?" she whispered. Jonathan crouched slightly, meeting her gaze. "It's okay, Emily. I'm here. I'm taking you home," he assured her. "But we have to move quickly." The man took a step closer, blocking the exit. "You're too late," he said coldly. "She's changed. You wouldn't even recognize her now. She's not the little girl who used to play in your garden." Jonathan's jaw tightened. He knew these were the words of someone trying to intimidate him, to weaken his resolve. He couldn't allow that. Not now. He reached for Emily's hand, gently pulling her behind him. The girl hesitated, but seeing the determined look in her father's eyes gave her courage. Together, they moved toward the back door, the boy still waiting outside, eyes wide with fear and anticipation. The shadowy figure of the man followed them, each step deliberate, echoing through the empty house. Jonathan's mind raced. He needed a plan, something quick. He remembered the old mill property, numerous exits, narrow passages, and hidden corners. He could use it to his advantage, to create a diversion and get Emily to safety. But first, he had to distract the man. Without hesitation, Jonathan grabbed the nearest object, a rusty metal rod, and swung it toward the doorframe. The sudden noise startled the man, giving Jonathan just enough time to push Emily through the side door and into the night. "Go!" Jonathan hissed urgently. Emily ran, her footsteps muffled against the wet ground, disappearing into the shadows. The boy followed, glancing nervously back at the house. Jonathan stayed behind, ready to face the man if necessary. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of protecting his daughter. The man stepped outside, fury in his eyes. "You think you can take her from me?" he shouted, his voice carrying through the night. Jonathan met his gaze, unwavering. "I don't think. I know," he replied. The words were simple, but the conviction behind them struck harder than any weapon. A tense standoff followed. The man weighed his options, and for a moment, Jonathan thought he might attack. But then, from somewhere behind the house, came the sound of a car engine revving. The boy had called for backup, or maybe he had left a signal for Jonathan's security team. Either way, it was enough to distract the man, who cursed under his breath and retreated into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as he had appeared. Jonathan didn't wait to see more. He sprinted toward Emily and the boy, grabbing her hand and pulling her into the car. The boy slid into the passenger seat, glancing at Jonathan with awe and relief. I can't believe you did it," he whispered. Jonathan offered a brief smile, his focus already shifting to the next challenge, getting Emily home safely. As they drove away, Emily finally found her voice. "Dad, why didn't anyone tell me you were looking for me?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. Jonathan reached over, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I never stopped searching, Emily. Not for a single day," he said softly. "And I never will. You're my daughter. Nothing will ever change that." The boy, sitting beside them, seemed nervous but relieved. You really are her father," he said. Jonathan nodded. "Yes, and now it's my job to make sure she's safe." The boy exhaled, as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. As they drove through the deserted streets, Jonathan reflected on everything that had led to this moment. Months of searching, endless sleepless nights, meetings with detectives, and countless false leads. All of it had been worth it to see his daughter alive. But he knew this wasn't over. Whoever had taken Emily, whoever had hidden her, would not let her go easily. There were still questions, still dangers lurking, and he had to be ready. Emily glanced out the window, the city lights blurring past. "Dad, I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan squeezed her hand gently. "I know, sweetheart. I know," he said. "But we're together now. That's what matters. And I promise, we'll figure everything out." The boy looked at Jonathan, admiration and respect shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. Jonathan gave a small nod, realizing that this boy had risked everything by speaking the truth, by pointing him in the right direction. He owed him more than words could ever express. But even as relief washed over him, Jonathan couldn't ignore the gnawing worry in the back of his mind. Who had kept Emily? Why her? And what was waiting for them once they reached safety? These questions would haunt him, drive him, and force him to make choices he had never imagined. As the car disappeared into the night, Jonathan made a silent vow. No matter what, he would uncover every secret, face every danger, and ensure that Emily's life returned to the safety and love she deserved. Nothing, not even the darkest threats, could stand in the way of a father determined to protect his child. The car hummed softly as Jonathan drove through the darkened streets, the city lights fading behind them. Emily sat beside him, clutching her sketchbook like a lifeline, her small hands trembling. Jonathan stole a glance at her, heart tightening. She was alive. She was finally with him. But the unease that had been gnawing at him for months refused to let go. Something about the boy's warning, the man at the house, and the secrecy surrounding Emily didn't sit right. "Dad?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Jonathan turned to her. "Yes, sweetheart," she hesitated, then spoke with a mixture of fear and confusion. Why were they hiding me? I don't remember everything. Just flashes, shadows, a man's voice." Her words faltered, and she hugged her sketchbook tightly. Jonathan's chest constricted. Each fragment of memory she shared was a puzzle piece, but the picture it formed was terrifying. Whoever had kept her wasn't just after control. They wanted to erase her from the world she knew. Jonathan took a deep breath, keeping his voice calm. "Emily, we'll figure this out. Right now, the most important thing is that you're safe." She nodded, though the fear in her eyes lingered. Jonathan's mind was already racing, forming plans, preparing for the inevitable confrontation that would follow. Whoever had done this wouldn't simply disappear. They would come for her again if they had the chance. The boy beside them stayed silent, glancing nervously between Emily and Jonathan. Jonathan finally addressed him. "Thank you for telling me," he said sincerely. "You risked a lot tonight." The boy swallowed hard, avoiding eye contact. I just wanted her to be safe," he said quietly. "I didn't know what else to do." Jonathan nodded, feeling a deep respect for the courage the boy had shown. "You did the right thing. You gave her a chance to come home. That's all that matters." As the car moved further from the mill, Jonathan's phone buzzed insistently. He ignored it at first, focusing on the road, but when it buzzed a second time, he knew it couldn't wait. It was his security team, and their terse voice made his stomach knot. "Sir, we've been monitoring activity near the mill. You're not safe there yet. The man you encountered, he's connected to a network. Dangerous people. They'll try to track Emily. You need to leave the area immediately." Jonathan's jaw clenched. The threat was far from over. Whoever had taken Emily had resources, contacts, and means to strike quickly. But he wasn't about to let fear dictate his actions. He adjusted the route, taking them through winding streets and back alleys, avoiding main roads where surveillance might be higher. Every turn, every glance at Emily, reminded him of what was at stake. He couldn't fail. Not now. As they drove, Emily finally spoke again, her voice trembling but curious. "Dad, why didn't you give up? I've been gone so long." Jonathan's eyes softened. "Sweetheart, a parent never gives up on their child. I searched every corner, every lead. Every day, I woke up hoping I'd find you. And tonight, we did. You're here. That's all that matters." Emily's eyes filled with tears, and she buried her face into his shoulder. Jonathan held her, feeling the weight of months of fear and longing lift, if only slightly. But relief was fleeting. Jonathan knew that answers were waiting. Answers that could shake everything he thought he knew. Who had taken her? Why? And what had they done to her in the time she was gone? His grip on the steering wheel tightened. He needed information. He needed to act before the enemies he suspected could act first. The boy spoke up again, voice hesitant. Sir, I think they, I think they wanted to recruit her. They said she has a gift. Something special. Jonathan turned sharply, his mind racing. A gift? What do you mean? The boy shook his head. I don't know exactly. They wouldn't explain. But they always said she was different, that she could help them in ways I didn't understand. Jonathan felt a chill run down his spine. Emily, his little girl, had been chosen by dangerous people for reasons unknown. He realized just how deep this went. This wasn't a simple kidnapping. It was something far more sinister. Emily, sensing the tension, asked softly, Dad, what did they mean by different? Did I do something? Jonathan shook his head gently, trying to mask the fear he felt inside. No, Emily. It's not your fault. You've always been special, yes, but these people, they're the ones who are dangerous. They saw something in you they wanted to exploit. But I promise, I won't let them touch you again. The car wound its way to a secluded location, a safe house Jonathan had prepared months ago for emergencies. Hidden in the hills outside the city, it was secure, discreet, and equipped with everything they might need. As they arrived, Jonathan breathed a brief sigh of relief. For the first time since finding Emily, he allowed himself a moment of calm. She was out of immediate danger. But even as he opened the doors, the weight of the situation pressed down on him. This was only the beginning. The network the boy mentioned, the man at the mill, the mysterious gift they claimed Emily had, all of it hinted at something far bigger than Jonathan had imagined. And he knew that answers wouldn't come easy. Inside the safe house, Emily finally felt the warmth of security, though her eyes still held questions. Jonathan sat beside her, taking her hands in his. Emily, I need you to tell me everything you remember, he said gently. No matter how small, it could be important. Emily nodded, taking a shaky breath. She began recounting fragmented memories, faces and shadows, whispers in the night, and a strange feeling that someone was always watching. Each memory was a piece of the puzzle, each detail bringing Jonathan closer to the truth. Meanwhile, outside, Jonathan's security team worked quietly, scanning the surrounding area for threats. The night was far from over, and the danger was very real. But Jonathan knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would stop at nothing to uncover the truth behind Emily's disappearance. Nothing would prevent him from protecting his daughter. As Emily's story unfolded, Jonathan realized that the man at the mill was just the tip of the iceberg. The network she had been caught up in ran deeper than he had imagined, with connections and plans that threatened far more than just one child. And in that moment, Jonathan made a vow, not just to save Emily, but to dismantle the web of danger that had ensnared her. This was the fight of a lifetime, and Jonathan was ready. Jonathan spent the night in the safe house, restless. Emily slept fitfully beside him, clutching her sketchbook like a talisman, her small frame tense with lingering fear. Jonathan stared out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance, and reflected on everything he had learned. The man at the mill, the boy's cryptic warning, and the mention of Emily's gift, all of it pointed to something far more dangerous than he had imagined. Whoever had taken her hadn't done it randomly. They had a plan, and she was at the center of it. By morning, Jonathan was already moving. He couldn't wait for the threats to come to him. He needed to act. He began by reviewing the fragments of information Emily had shared, faces, voices, and locations. He cross-referenced everything with his security team, piecing together patterns, connections, and possible safe exits. The network wasn't just local. It spanned across cities, maybe even countries. The realization made his stomach churn, but Jonathan's determination only strengthened. Emily's safety depended on him unraveling it before anyone else could interfere. Emily, sensing her father's tension, spoke softly. Dad, what are we going to do? Are they going to come for me again? Jonathan shook his head, forcing a reassuring smile. No, Emily. We're going to stay ahead of them. I've been preparing for situations like this my entire life. And now, more than ever, I'll do everything it takes to keep you safe. Emily nodded, drawing courage from his words, but Jonathan could see the worry in her eyes. She was brave, but this ordeal had already stolen too much from her childhood. By midday, Jonathan had gathered all the resources he could, private investigators, tech specialists, and trusted contacts within law enforcement. They began tracing the network that had ensnared Emily, following digital trails, financial records, and obscure communications. The deeper they dug, the more alarming the findings became. The network was sophisticated, well-funded, and ruthless. And at its center was someone Jonathan never expected to see again. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. The leader of the network, the person orchestrating Emily's disappearance, was someone from Jonathan's own past, someone he had trusted. He hadn't seen this individual in years, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh. Anger surged through him, mixing with fear for his daughter. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. This was personal. Jonathan's team pinpointed the location where the network had been operating, a sprawling, abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. It was a place designed for secrecy, isolated and hidden from prying eyes. Jonathan knew that confronting them directly would be dangerous, but he couldn't wait. Every day Emily remained close to them was a day of risk. He had to act, and he had to act now. He turned to Emily. "Sweetheart, I need you to stay here, safe," he said firmly. She looked at him, fear and determination battling in her eyes. "I want to come with you," she insisted. Jonathan hesitated, seeing the fire in her gaze. She had been through so much, and yet her spirit hadn't been broken. After a moment, he nodded. "All right, but you stay close, follow my lead, and trust me. Do you understand?" Emily nodded, her hands gripping his tightly. Together, they moved under the cover of night, using back roads and hidden paths to reach the industrial complex. Jonathan's heart pounded with every step, each shadow and sound a potential threat. Emily stayed close, her small hand in his, eyes wide but unwavering. They approached a side entrance, and Jonathan's team provided cover from a distance, monitoring for any signs of interference. Inside, the complex was dark and silent, broken only by the distant hum of machinery and the occasional creak of metal. Jonathan's instincts screamed that they weren't alone. Every corner, every shadow could hide someone watching, waiting. And then, they saw it, a figure in the distance, tall, commanding, and unmistakably familiar. The leader of the network. Jonathan's blood ran cold, but he didn't flinch. He had prepared for this confrontation, and he would not back down. The figure's eyes met Jonathan's, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Recognition flashed across the leader's face, quickly replaced by a calculating, cold expression. "Jonathan," the man said, voice low and menacing. "I wondered when you'd find me." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "You took my daughter," he said through gritted teeth. "And now you're going to pay for every second of it." The leader smiled faintly, a cruel, knowing smile. "You don't understand, Jonathan. She's not just a child, she's the key. Everything we've planned, everything we've built, relies on her." Jonathan's heart clenched. The boy had been right. Emily was special. But she was his daughter, not a pawn in someone else's game. And he would fight with everything he had to bring her home safely. With a deep breath, Jonathan stepped forward, shielding Emily behind him. "I don't care what she is or what you think she can do. She's my daughter, and nothing you do will ever change that. Now tell me where she's been kept, and I swear, you won't get another chance to harm her." The leader's expression hardened, and for a tense moment, it seemed as if violence was inevitable. But Jonathan didn't waver. He had trained for moments like this, and his resolve was unbreakable. Whatever came next, he was ready to face it, not just as a billionaire or a strategist, but as a father willing to do anything to save his child. Jonathan's eyes locked onto the leader, his every muscle tense with determination. Emily pressed closer to him, but he could see the courage in her small frame. She had endured so much, and now she was standing right beside him, ready to face whatever came next. The leader took a slow step forward, smirking. "Do you really think you can stop this, Jonathan? She's not just any child. She's special, gifted. She holds the key to everything I've been building." Jonathan's jaw clenched. "You don't get to decide that. She's my daughter, and she doesn't belong to you or anyone else. Not now, not ever." Emily's hand squeezed his tightly, and Jonathan felt a surge of determination unlike anything he had ever known. The network's leader might be powerful, ruthless, and cunning, but Jonathan had something they didn't: love, resolve, and the will to fight for family. Suddenly, the leader signaled, and a group of masked figures emerged from the shadows, surrounding Jonathan and Emily. Jonathan's mind raced. He couldn't take them all head-on, not without risking Emily's safety. But then, a familiar hum of technology filled the air, a sound Jonathan recognized immediately. His team, positioned outside, had remotely disabled the building's surveillance and communication systems. The element of surprise was his. "Emily, stay close to me," Jonathan whispered, scanning the room for escape routes. The leader laughed. "You think you can outsmart me with gadgets and tricks? This isn't just a game." Jonathan's gaze fell on a narrow catwalk above, leading to an emergency exit. It was risky, but it was their only chance. "Now," he muttered, and together they dashed toward the catwalk, moving swiftly despite the chaos erupting around them. The masked figures lunged, but Jonathan was ready. Using a combination of quick thinking and sheer determination, he managed to block their attacks, push Emily safely ahead, and climb the catwalk. Each step was a gamble, every movement critical. Emily followed, her trust in him unwavering. The leader shouted, furious, as they reached the exit. Jonathan kicked the door open, and the night air rushed in like a wave of freedom. Outside, the city lights seemed to stretch endlessly, promising safety, but Jonathan knew they weren't safe yet. The leader wouldn't let them go so easily. Just as they reached the street, a sleek black vehicle screeched around the corner, headlights blinding. Jonathan reacted instantly, pulling Emily into the shadows of a nearby alley. The vehicle stopped, doors swinging open, and the leader emerged, furious but restrained by Jonathan's quick thinking. "You can't run from this, Jonathan," the man shouted. "She's ours." Jonathan met his gaze steadily. "She's my daughter," he said, "and you will never take her again." With that, Jonathan used the chaos to his advantage, sprinting with Emily toward a hidden car parked by his team. The boy who had first guided him appeared beside them, helping them into the vehicle. The doors slammed shut, and the engine roared to life, propelling them forward into the night. As they drove away, Emily finally looked up at her father, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, I was so scared," she whispered. Jonathan reached over, brushing her hair from her face. "I know, sweetheart. I know. But you're safe now, and I'm never letting anything happen to you again." Emily clung to him, her small hands trembling, but the fear in her eyes slowly gave way to relief. Jonathan knew this was only the beginning of unraveling the truth behind Emily's gift and the network that had tried to exploit her. But at that moment, all that mattered was that she was alive, in his arms, and free from immediate danger. Every sleepless night, every desperate search, had led to this. His daughter was finally home. Later, in the safety of his mansion, Jonathan sat with Emily and the boy, reviewing everything they knew. Emily recounted what she remembered about the network, the strange instructions, and the whispers about her abilities. Jonathan listened carefully, piecing together the puzzle. The more he learned, the clearer it became that this network had been planning something monumental, using children like Emily for their schemes. But Jonathan had a plan. He had the resources, the intelligence, and the resolve to dismantle it completely. "I promise you," Jonathan said, looking at Emily and the boy, "no one will ever control you, manipulate you, or take you again. We'll stop them, and we'll make sure this never happens to anyone else." Emily nodded, finally allowing herself to smile, though faintly. "I want to help," she said softly. Jonathan squeezed her hand. "You will, in your own way. But first, we make sure you're safe. Always." The boy looked at Jonathan with admiration. "Thank you for everything," he said quietly. Jonathan nodded. "You helped save her. You made the right choice." The boy smiled faintly, relief washing over him. As night fell over the city, Jonathan sat by the window, Emily asleep beside him. He knew the network was still out there, dangerous and resourceful, but he was ready. This was more than wealth, more than power. It was about protecting family, about fighting for the ones you love against every obstacle. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was the fight that truly mattered. And as he looked down at his daughter, peaceful and safe, Jonathan realized something profound. No challenge, no danger, no network of the world could ever overcome the bond between a father and his child. Emily stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly, "I'm home." Jonathan smiled, tears threatening to fall. "Yes, sweetheart, you're home." Outside, the city pulsed with life, unaware of the danger that had been lurking in its shadows. But inside, A father and his daughter had reclaimed their world, their bond unbroken, and their hearts finally at peace, if only for a moment. Jonathan knew the fight wasn't entirely over, but with Emily by his side and the courage of those who had helped him along the way, he was ready to face whatever came next. Because some battles weren't fought for money, power, or fame, they were fought for love, family, and the unwavering promise to never let anyone hurt the ones you hold most dear. And in that quiet, victorious moment, Jonathan knew he would move heaven and earth to ensure Emily's life was hers again, free, safe, and full of the childhood she had been denied.